The things that we are demanding now in the movement will require the kind of solid commitment on the part of people all over this nation that will make for actual changes.
Oh, walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Oh, walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Gonna walk and never tire. Walk and never tire. Walk and never tire. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Oh, walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Hey there, everybody. So glad to see you today. I know we're not in person. I'm here at beautiful Ted Mann Concert Hall on the campus of the University of Minnesota, and I can think of no better place to be to kick off our 40th annual Martin Luther King Jr. tribute program. That's right, you heard me correct, 40. For 40 years, the University of Minnesota has paid tribute to the amazing legacy and the contributions of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We were doing this here at the University of Minnesota before it was a national holiday, pretty much before there were programs around the country, and we have continued this tradition. Thanks to the leadership of Professor Reginald Buckner, this program started. It caught wind in the city, on campus, and for these 40 years, it has been a great way for us to come together as students, faculty, staff here at the University of Minnesota community, but also the greater Twin Cities community, to say together that we believe in Dr. King's dream of the beloved community. And I could think of no better way to honor Dr. King than to honor the legacy that John Lewis left behind. Because you see, John Lewis had a vision of a more excellent way. And his vision of a more excellent way called us to be bold, brave, and courageous. He challenged us to find a way to get in the way. In his own words, he says, "I want to see young people in America feel the spirit of the 1960s and find a way to get in the way, to find a way to get in trouble, good trouble, necessary trouble." This event is always sponsored by the University of Minnesota Office for Equity and Diversity and the School of Music. We'd be remiss without acknowledging President Gable for her tremendous support of this program. And it is my honor now to introduce President Joan Gable, who will bring greetings.
Hello, I'm Joan Gable, President of the University of Minnesota, and I am honored to welcome you to our 40th annual Martin Luther King Jr. tribute concert. In addition to honoring the life and legacy of Dr. King, this year we have the particular honor of recognizing the life and legacy of John Lewis. In December of 2016, the University of South Carolina, where I then served as provost, recognized Congressman Lewis with an honorary doctorate. I had the distinct honor of meeting him then, and also told him during the few moments that I had with him how honored my family was to have him represent us during the time that we lived in his district when we were in Georgia. In delivering the commencement speech to graduates after receiving his honorary degree, Lewis spoke for less than 10 minutes, but he held the audience absolutely captive. In particular, he noted that in 1955, as a 15-year-old 10th grader, he first heard of Rosa Parks and first heard the words of Martin Luther King Jr. on the radio during the Montgomery bus boycott. King's works and Rosa Parks' actions, as he said, inspired him to find a good way to get in the way. And he ventured into a life of trouble. He noted, "I got in good trouble, necessary trouble," a quote that we attribute to him in ways that are so meaningful for so many of us. That day in 2016, he closed his remarks with a forceful charge to the graduates. He said, "Go out there and get in the way. Make a little noise. Be bold, be brave, be courageous, and use your education, your training, to redeem the soul of our nation and maybe to help make the world a better place for all human beings." Words that are so meaningful, especially today, that we need today after recent events. Being in John Lewis's company, even for just a few minutes, was a great honor for me, and we saw when he passed how so many of us had the opportunity to post or comment on our interactions with him, post pictures of our meetings, how meaningful his work was, how powerful his work was at the end of his life, and how strong his legacy was, and his incredible work of good trouble for the nation and for the world, and how we need to continue to serve as a guiding light for what we need to do today and into the future. So I want to thank all of you for joining us virtually, and we look forward to seeing our community come together again next year when we can celebrate in person. Thank you.
Thank you, President Gabel. When people join together with a mission that's grounded with love and a sense of community, together we can make the impossible possible. In the midst of what we've experienced throughout this year and most recently here in our country, it may seem like an impossible dream for us to come together. But I do believe that the beloved community is still a possibility within our reach. And it's days like today when we honor and reflect upon the values of Dr. King and Congressman Lewis and the many others who have fought the fight of justice, that we can take tangible steps towards those goals. And art, music, spoken word have always been and always will be an important part of the recipe towards community. So today it's my honor to introduce our first performer. He's a talented musician, an incredible educator with many, many awards. He's a graduate student here at the University of Minnesota. He's also the director of the Global Music Initiatives for MacPhail School of Music. And my favorite thing is he hails from the South like me, and he's moved here to the Midwest. So he's my brother in many, many ways. Please join me in welcoming Chris Rochester.
For everyone who struggles in their youth. deceptioning instead of what is true. It seems we lose the game before we even start to play. Who made these rules? We're so confused. Easily we're led astray. Let me tell you that everything is everything. Everything is everything. Everything is everything. Yes. Everything is everything.
Under the leadership of Kathy Saltzman-Romey, Matthew Mahaffey, and a talented cohort of graduate students, the University of Minnesota choirs have been inspiring audiences for many, many years. I had the privilege of being a part of this program, and it's a great thrill to introduce their performance to you today.
What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't back down? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens? What happens? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't back down? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens? What happens? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't back down? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she wears the crown? What happens when she rules her own body? What happens when she sets the beat? What happens when she bows to nobody? What happens when she stands on her own 2 feet? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't back down? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens? What happens? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't back down? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she wears the crown? Whoa, we rise above, whoa, we lead with love, whoa, we have won, we are one, we've just begun, whoa.
Hello, my name is Michael Goh and I serve as Vice President for Equity and Diversity for the University of Minnesota System. On behalf of the University of Minnesota's Office for Equity and Diversity, I want to thank you for joining us today for the virtual 40th Annual Martin Luther King Jr. Tribute Concert. I would also like to thank the artists, speakers, and event partners who are generously sharing their talents during this extraordinary time. Throughout today's tribute, you will hear reflections from University of Minnesota faculty members who will share how the legacies of Reverend Dr. King and Congressman Lewis have shaped and continue to inspire their lives and work. Thank you again for joining us today.
I want to start with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s words from a letter from a Birmingham jail. I'm sure that none of you would want to rest content with the superficial kind of social analysis that deals merely with effects and does not grapple with underlying causes. It is unfortunate that demonstrations are taking place in Birmingham, but it is even more unfortunate that the city's white power structure left the Negro community with no alternative. I read this because what drove me to become a researcher was the fact that I read articles and books about my community written by those who didn't know my community. I realized I could not rely on the academy to answer the questions that I had. Central to my work is to lift voices, to advocate for and with communities of color who are relegated to the margins, and this is a choice every day. I recognize that systemic racism impacts the trajectory of students of color participating and thriving in STEM fields.
I think what Dr. King, his message and the example that he left behind for us shows that when you're trying to affect change, sometimes you can't do things the same old way.
What I find fascinating and heartening about both John Lewis and Martin Luther King Jr. is that both of them were able to use their radical imagination to see a future that wasn't constructed by cutthroat capitalism, colonialism, and racism.
Coming up with mechanisms, coming up with ways to fight the good fight in non-traditional, unconventional ways that have proven to be effective. And I think as a Black scientist in this world, in this country, it's important for me to also think about clever, unconventional ways to help impact positively the communities that I work with, that I'm doing science to help improve.
They put themselves in the mindset that there could be a society based on compassion and ethics of care.
I stand on the shoulders of giants. I can't help but consider what Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. has meant to generations. I say this as a woman with a degree in biology and a PhD in educational policy. This is not by chance. My parents are born and raised in Wetumpka, Alabama, to farmers and sharecroppers. My dad attended a Black school. My mom was one of the first Blacks to attend a white school in their rural city just years after a letter from a Birmingham jail was written. Homes were bombed of families who sent their children to the white schools. This was a generation of heroes, including their families, who understood the risk of going to school. Although I spent many holidays and summers in Alabama as a child, it was not until the fall of 2019 that I visited Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s church in Montgomery, Alabama. To walk the aisles and stand at the altar and to look at the Capitol from the steps of the church where George Wallace spent his days, I stood in awe of the persistence of Martin Luther King Jr., the persistence I must maintain in my own work with hopes of continuing his work.
When you see something that's not right, that's not fair, that's not just, you have to say something. You have to do something. Those words by John Lewis invite us to a more excellent way of community together. It calls us all into action to lift our voice and sing in the words of the iconic song by the Johnsons that has sustained us and encouraged us as a people, as a community for many, many years. And as is our tradition here on the MLK Tribute Concert, we sing it now.
Lift every voice and sing, till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us, facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with a steady beat
Hello, my name is Niles, founder of the Avant-Garde Music Entertainment Production Company and founder of the Hip Hop History and the Arts Youth Artist Development Program. It's good to be here with you all. Dr. King and John Lewis are two important figures in our society, and I look up to them highly because they dedicated their lives to uplift, empowerment, unification, and fighting against injustices for the betterment of our society. And in this day and age, especially, I feel like as artists, we should use those same components with what we create to guide people to the light. With that, I present to you all the music video for my new single, Reassure My Soul, which is about understanding how blessed you are, even amongst the worst conditions. It is on my album, To Remain, that is out worldwide digitally on all music platforms. Enjoy.
Overnight, nationwide unrest. Philadelphia, where stores were ransacked and police officers hit with bricks. Large crowds of demonstrators in multiple cities getting more violent following the death of George Floyd.
Truly a nationwide concern. 26 states reporting more than 1,000 cases on Thursday.
Hey you, yeah you, I know you could be down, thinking that the whole world is against you, like you're too different, like you can't make it. You probably have a lot of regrets, but I want to tell you right now from the bottom of my soul that you are blessed beyond measure. So I want you to look into the mirror and say, this time I want to know you so I can give you more. I want to love you better, greater than before. This is a reassurance that you are blessed, and there's people going through way more than you. So focus on the positive instead of the negative, and get up, get out there, and go get what was meant for you. You have a destiny to fulfill. Do you know how blessed you actually are? Some people living with conditions that's past bizarre. Some people for the whole life never had a car. Some people are homeless in the winters as they dig at the trash and starve. Do you know how blessed you actually are? Some people for the whole life are blind. Some people for the whole life are deaf and can't hear. So they speak with a slur, plus they have to use the fingers for words. Do you know how blessed you actually are? Some people have mental disorders. Some people have no clean water to cook or bathe in. So they starve as diseases eat at their skin, and no rescue team is coming to save them. Do you know how blessed you actually are? Some people on the daily gotta go back and forth to the hospital while you have a brain, 2 eyes, and a body that's working perfectly, which means you have the tools to be worry-free.
This time I want to know you so I can give you more. I want to love you better, greater than before. This time I want to know you so I can give you more. I want to love you better, greater than before.
Do you know how blessed you actually are? Some people held hostage out of nowhere. Some people are paralyzed from car crashes. Some people are innocent bystanders who died from a crossfire, no fear. Do you know how blessed you actually are? Some people live in neighborhoods with bombs dropped by drones there. While you complain about the ghetto in third world countries, it's on a much higher level, so don't even go there. Do you know how blessed you actually are? Some people born with no limbs, imagine that. Some people depressed with no friends, contemplating to bless the gap that they forehead. Some people's families left them full dead. Do you know how blessed you actually are? Some people's pain is unbearable. They truly wish that they were you because you have a brain, 2 eyes, and a body that's working perfectly, which means you have the tools to be worry-free.
This time I want to know you so I can give you more. I want to love you better, greater than before. This time I want to know you so I can give you more. I want to love you better.
Yeah. I got respect for people who scrub toilets and mop floors, but treat the job like the CEO's office on the top floor. What you know about the genocides and all for? What you complain about, some people would die for. Imagine reaching every dream that you try, but then you lose it all within the blink of an eye. This one cab driver told me his story while chauffeuring me. He took for granted his reign when he used to own the city. The once was a cello player living downtown, who lived a hard life, but he was known around town for playing bomb sounds that the people all praise. So they would drop ones inside of his guitar case. He never cared about the cash cause he had a passion. Making the people smile is what gave him satisfaction. You may think that this message is for you, but it's for myself too. We all need to renew and reassure all souls.
So I can give you more. I want to love you better, greater than before. This time I want to know you, so I can give you more. I want to love you better, greater than before.
Thank you, Niles, for that incredible reminder of how blessed we are even in the midst of adversity. The work that you do in the community connects beautifully to our next performers and the way that they have come together. This is the Minnesota Chorale, a wonderful performing arts organization right here in our home Twin Cities, best known for their work performing with the Minnesota Orchestra. But in the summer of 2018, they had the opportunity to travel to Johannesburg, South Africa, to do an exchange with the Gauteng Choristers. They reunited this year, this fall of 2020, and put together this beautiful presentation of a South African prayer, Ukutula. It's a prayer for peace, a prayer for justice, a prayer for humankind. May your soul experience peace as you listen.
Call
The second question that we asked our faculty members connects to Congressman Lewis's mindset of a more excellent way.
I think the idea of finding a more excellent way in terms of work, in terms of the type of work that I do as an educator, as a scientist, I think it's important to always think of that long-term goal. You can't always be completely consumed with the here and now. You have to think about what's going to be the result of my actions in this moment. And so when I think about working with various community stakeholders, when I think about training the numerous students that have come through my lab, I'm always thinking in terms of the community that I'm building.
They structured their lives using nonviolent philosophy to be examples of that possibility, to give us a vision of what it could be like to live in that way.
I see myself as a servant leader. I'm the most comfortable behind the scenes, bridging, networking, advocating, thinking, and most importantly, considering how to shift hearts and minds. I teach classes on race and culture for aspiring teachers and on equity and social justice in STEM education for PhD students.
I think for me, when I think about my personal life and the work I do with my family and my friends, and then the work I do in terms of my research and the community-based aspect, as well as the bench science, it's always really rooted in the idea of building a community that's going to be sustainable and beneficial to all people in the long run. Because I think when we all do better, we all do better, with no one being excluded.
Engaging in this work is grounded in my faith. I choose to walk in love. There are times I should be angry at something racist, stated, sexist, etc. But I first consider, how will this student hear me?
Those who've been marginalized and left out of conversations definitely need to be brought into those conversations, and those things need to be righted in a very deliberate sense. And so I think we have to remind ourselves of those things that have been done incorrectly and move to rectify those things with as much enthusiasm, with as much vigor as we can muster, to make up for the lost time of not having those voices, those experiences heard and shared and added to the collective good of everyone.
I appreciate the most that we can see the vision of possibility and we can use our imaginations not only to give an idea of what a different way of living could be like, but also to start practicing it now.
As Dr. King wrote, we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Again, lives are on the line. I work on behalf of children I may never meet or see. That's my drive to work for a more excellent way.
We continue to strive for the goal that we see that may not be in full focus for everyone, but I do believe that it takes a few of us who have a clear vision of what that future looks like, that positive future looks like, to continue to orchestrate and organize and to continue to be the architects of that dream.
Things are moving fast. Hold on tight and you will last. Keep your self-respect, your manly pride. Get yourself in gear, keep your stride. Never mind your fears, for brighter days will soon be here. Take it from me, someday we'll all be free. Yeah. Keep on walking tall, hold your head up high. Lay your dreams right up to the sky. Sing your greatest song, and you keep going, going on. Take it from me, someday we'll all be free. Yeah. Hey, just wait and see. Someday we'll all be free. Yeah. Oh, take it from me. Someday we'll all be free. Yes. Come on. Take it from me. Someday we'll all be free. Yeah. Take it from me. Someday we'll all be free. Yeah.
Not one of us can rest, be happy, be at home with ourselves, or be at peace until we end hatred and division. Those words of John Lewis remind me of this summer, and we all know what a summer we experience here in the Twin Cities and across the United States and the world, where once again we saw the brutal hand of injustice against Black and brown bodies being played out in front of our very eyes. And what was so wonderful to see this year, in the midst of this horrific pandemic that has crippled all of us and has damaged all of us in many ways, was the outpouring of allyship, or dare I say accompliceship, where people of all ages and all hues and all colors came together to speak out, to stand up and say enough is enough. No justice, no peace. If one of us can't breathe, then none of us can breathe. A dear friend and colleague, Laura Caviani, is an amazing Twin Cities artist, composer, educator, jazz musician. Laura penned these words in this beautiful song that I'll share with you to remind us that, as John Lewis says, the burden of race is too much to bear, and it's time for us to lay that down, to lay down that burden, because we came here in different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. This is Rise Up and Lay Down Your Arms. Rise up and lay down, rise up and lay down, rise up and lay down your arms. Rise up and lay down, rise up and lay down, rise up and lay down your arms. There comes a time to speak for common ground, because silence divides us. There comes a time to take a stand for the right to simply live. Rise up and lay down, rise up and lay down, rise up and lay down your arms. Rise up and lay down, rise up and lay down, rise up and lay down your arms. Now is the time to face our common fears, because hiding betrays us. Now is the time where we can change to unite us all. Rise up and lay down, rise up and lay down, rise up and lay down your arms. Rise up and lay down, rise up and lay down, rise up and lay down your arms.
Even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow,
I still have a dream.
It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up
and live out the true meaning of its creed.
We hold these truths to be self-evident.
That all men are created equal.
I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia,
the sons of former slaves
and the sons of former slave owners
will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood.
I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi,
a state sweltering with the heat of injustice,
sweltering with the heat of oppression,
will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice.
I have a dream that little children
will one day live in a nation
where they will not be judged by the color of their skin,
but by the content of their character.
I have a dream today.
I have a dream that one day down in Alabama,
little black boys and girls will be able to join hands
with little white boys and white girls
as sisters and brothers.
I have a dream today.
This is our hope.
This is the faith that I go back with.
With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope.
With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation
into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood.
With this faith, we will be able to work together,
to pray together,
to struggle together,
to go to jail together,
to stand up for freedom together,
knowing that we will be free one day.
So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire.
Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York.
Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania.
Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado.
Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California.
But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia.
Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee.
Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi.
From every mountainside.
Let freedom ring.
When we let freedom ring, ring
from every village and every hamlet,
every state and every city,
we will be able to speed up that day.
When all of God's children,
black men and white men,
Jews and Gentiles,
Protestants and Catholics,
will be able to join hands and sing,
in the words of the old Negro spiritual,
free at last.
Free at last.
Thank God Almighty.
We are free at last.
Wasn't that beautiful? Isn't that the image that we want to have in our minds of our capital? Young people speaking with conviction, speaking truth to power. Friends, I believe Dr. King's dream is alive and well within many of our hearts throughout our community, and I especially believe it is alive in our young people, our youth. I had the pleasure of founding the VocalEssence Singers of This Age 4 years ago. And those young people you saw a few moments ago are members of our ensemble. And today they bring a powerful message to us, a message of hope over fear. Friends, go forth with that spirit of peace and unity and love. And let's do our part until we meet again. Be well, take care of yourselves and each other.
Behold how good and how pleasant it is for people to dwell together in unity. Behold how good and how pleasant it is for people to dwell together in unity.
pleasant it